Hello everybody and welcome to another live session. And I'm just trying to get a few things set up here. I want to see if I can get this stream chat working. So I'm just doing that right now, seeing if it's actually going to work. Now I see it over in the corner there, so hopefully you do too. And let's get this window working over here. Looks like we are live. There we go. And I got my chat working over here just in case this doesn't show up. Alright, what we're working on is a Knight of Casterly Rock. I'm going to remove this so you can actually see it. There we go. Here's a painted version. You can see some freehand on there. We've got our reference pictures up in the corners like we normally do. And this, we're going to do it in acrylics because we want to be able to get to this sort of freehand stuff while we're working on this. And I think we'll go with sort of a standard horse color here. I've got a couple other ones. Maybe we'll make this horse lighter colored. That there's so much going on with the blanket and everything else. You don't want to detract from that too much. Now, as usual, working with the craft brushes here. There we go. That's better. I think now, hey there, hey James. Oh, James and James. Great minds show up at the same time. You can see we've got a newer one here. And yeah, there's some paint on the handle. You can see there's a sharper tip. And then here, we've got it. It's a little more worn down, but we've got this filbert thing going on. Little advantage over filbert. Filbert's typically only about that long. This is going to let you hold more paint. It's going to yield a softer stroke, and we're going to need that when we work on some of these areas here. So again, I'm just going to move my there. Now I can sort of see what's going on. We're going to work with some standard acrylic paints. The Reaper liners, red, brown. I've got a sepia out here. This is one of my favorites. I really like this. They sort of started making this when I begged them to keep making liners. We also have some of the Reaper clear paints out here. The red, the yellow. You may see some of the purple also. Got colors like mint green, Maiden Flesh, the maggot white. So these are basically off whites. One is a little more red, one's a little more blue. And then we've also got some secret weapon colors out here that you'll potentially see. Okay. I'll take you to one of my blog posts I made on this. It'll get you a little closer view of the knight. You can see we did the sky earth, non-metallic, and see what's going on with the helmet there. See on the back of that helmet, the left-hand picture, you got the red reflected on the helmet. These are the crucial things about, see again on the right-hand image there, that reflection. Those are the crucial sort of things that you just can't get with those non-metallic metal paint sets. We have the same thing here. This is a unit of Lannisters. You can see there's red reflected. We're essentially reflecting the environment. There is no paint set that can essentially reflect that environment for you because they can't make every single environment. We're also going to use our makeup sponges here, especially in these early stages. And speaking of early stages, we're going to throw out some paint here before we keep screwing around too much with other things. So the brown liner, that's kind of a go-to for me. Throw it out there every time. There. Get some more out here. We'll even throw out some of the red. We'll see how clogged that is. Oh, it's not clogged. You saw that little pin that I had? It's one of these guys right here. It's important to have this on the back because sometimes you really need to push down in there. That makes it a tad easier. I'm going to throw a secret weapon out here. I just got a bunch of gray liner paints for my Adepticon class that I got to do. Here, let's get this out of here. So that's a fun, it's called weathering paints, but they're really not just for weathering. So we got those three out there. Here, let's throw the sepia liner too. Why not? Let's have some fun. And we're also going to do some blue liner. And we'll do that right over here. And got a lot of nice dark colors out there. Now let's push this out of the way. This is just plain old water over here. All right. What we're going to do, take that water. We're going to turn these into a bit of a glaze. There's another way you can do this too. So I got a little dropper like this here, so I can drop some water in there. It keeps your initial thing of water a little bit cleaner early on, although I really don't. It's not a big deal. Don't really care. This is the red liner. We're going to pull this out too. And this is that dark wood. So you can see it's almost a little more opaque right here. And now then the sepia liner, same thing. We'll leave the blue liner for a second now. Alright, I'm going to give this one more try here. So, it should... Yep, not sure why it is not working. I thought I had it good. We'll try that. Let's get our figure here, and let's get into some of these initial glazes. Now, those of you that have seen the oil painting versions, you know that I haven't had to pay as much attention to, well, things like, I don't know, gravity, physics, because it's oils. It's not going to dry during the course of what we're working on here. Acrylics are a little different, which is why I'm going to try and find myself a few points where I'm just naturally going to stop and do that here. You notice I'm just staying away from the banner for right now because we're focused on some other areas. You see I grabbed some different colors here. And just, well, he's keeping us company here. If anybody has questions as I grab some of the dark wood, but I'm just calling it a gray liner paint for right now. There's the brown liner. Let's go in with some of the red. Some more of the red liner. And you'll see when we remove some of this with the sponges, you'll see that what it's going to leave behind is some color tinting that we can work with. Okay, gonna work here, horse's head. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the banner out there for now, and I'm just gonna hit the rest of the horse here. I'm gonna throw some gray in here, and I'm just gonna shoot some of this brown liner on the underside. It's not terribly interesting to watch, I know, but it's got to be done. Now, for those of you that are going to... Oh, hey, Justin. How's it going? You survived the last one. This one, I don't know if it'll be the same marathon as last time. I think that was 3 some odd hours. But we got a lot to do here on this guy. So who knows? Alright, before all this dries, what are we going to do? We're going to take our sponge. And we're going to remove... not all of it. Not all of it. Justin and James know all about this process. So see how we're leaving some of that red behind? We also have scissors, like usual. I'm going to snip this. And away we go. So we're back to some of our lighter tones. By cutting that, it also creates a little different shape. I can get into some crevices there. Now I also have some other sponges like these guys, and they're handy when it's even hard to get in there with the other type of sponges even when I slice those up. So you can see we're taking some of this away, but not all of it. So we got reddish tint there, more of a brown, a little bit of a sepia here. Now we'll hit the base. That's where our dark wood / gray gonna come in handy. We'll throw a little bit of blue liner in there too. Also, some brown liner. Yeah, I think the last one wasn't the flayed. I think the last live session. No, that was the Free Folk Raiders. I think that was the last live session. I think the Flayed Men was the one before that. So even a little bit of the sepia liner in here. They're just using all the different colors. And again, sponge, poof. And because we varied the colors, so you can see that sepia there. We can see a little touch of, here's a nice touch of bluish gray on that stone. Just keep pulling some of this away. And I've got some here that I can show you that don't have some paint on them, so you can see what they look like. I think the flayed men, yeah, those are all primed now. So unfortunately, I don't have any with just the bare tree bark on them. So here we go. Banner time, and we're going to hit it with the red liner, touch of the brown, like so. All we're doing is prepping the surface. Now when we're oil painting, as you've seen on some of the other ones, we can really use that as part of the painting process. Here, not so much. So see how we're shading? We're already getting some shadows in there. Just by default, when you're trying to paint whole units like I am, because hey, this is part of my Adepticon army, you need to be able to maximize efficiency. And this is one way to do that. So now we've got a decent value over this whole thing. Let's compare to where we were just a few minutes ago. See, there's our primed, and this is now, we've got a little more action. So I've got even some smaller sponges. I can get in here, take some of that away from the face there, if need be. And this primer, as always, Badger Stynel Res. If you don't have an airbrush, you can use a brush to brush it on, because for several years, this is how we got that primer on the miniatures. We didn't have airbrushes, wasn't an option, so we brushed that on. If you have the airbrush, it obviously makes it a little faster, and you can see I did some dusting, because these are some darker browns under here, and then I went lighter and lighter. There's 12 colors of Badger Stynel Res, so there's plenty to choose from. Actually, this is something else you'll probably see either on live sessions or as part of the Patreon page. Here's some Lannister Crossbows, and what I wanted to show you is some of these bases here. So this is going to be another tutorial. I'm going to show you how to use the Green Stuff World texture rollers to make a really nifty unit like so. So now let's get some other colors out on the palette and see what we got. Let's throw some clear red out here. I'm going to get that where you can see it, because people, they seem to like to know when I'm actually reaching for some water. On the subject of using water versus flow improver or different painting mediums, we used to use those. My old painting pyramid videos, I was using a lot of Reaper and Vallejo flow improver. Nothing wrong with that. If you use it and you like it, keep using it. I'm not going to tell you to stop using something that you like that's part of what you're doing. For me, I'm a watercolorist by trade and training, so using water is just, it's second nature to me. So this is, it's mint green here, is it? Yeah, there's a few colors that are real similar to this. Hey, Bethany, how's it going? So Australia, well, Tasmania specifically, now represented. And I am also going to throw out a little bit of this verdigris pale green. Now, one of the things that I want to get into early on, let me see if I can find The miniature in question, that is this one. Okay. The whole idea with the metallics and such. I'm going to grab a brush here to point with. See, we've got these purples and tans and blues. You can see some of the colors even right in here. Just threw them out on the palette. Now, as I get into my controls here and crank up or crank down the color intensity, see how there's still plenty of shape here? You can see all the shadows and everything, all the brights. This is, as we bring the intensity back, it's all about different forms of contrast. It's not just light versus dark. It's not just red versus green. There's saturated versus unsaturated. Now, we got our colors out on the palette, so let's dive into some clear red. And let's have some shadows that might be a bit on the cooler side. I'm even going to grab a little bit of that blue liner. You can see it's not necessarily very thick. The whole idea is I want some of this stuff to show through. So I just try to discourage the notion of base coats, because if this was one of my painting videos right now, there would have been a thing on the screen that said initial layers and shaded base, or initial glazes and shaded base coat. That's what it would have said. Because to me, a base coat doesn't have to just be a flat color. It can have shading on it. And see, I even pick up some of the initial wash that I did in there, no big deal. Now let's see what I did. Okay, the reins. I might actually put something special on the reins, maybe some freehand right here on this guy. So let's keep going here, like so. Using the bigger brush keeps things moving. It's not about just painting faster, which, well, it is. But when you're using the bigger brush like this, the paint gets on there faster. It doesn't have as much time to dry. And then you get a chance to maybe do a little bit of wet blending. Let's hit the cloak here while we got it. This too, looks like that's actually a piece of armor there. I didn't see that last time on the other one. And I don't even care. See some of the preliminary wash / glaze. That's already starting to integrate itself in there. We'll work around here. Again, some of that initial glaze is shifting this color a bit, and that is just fine. See how that gets darker? Well, that really should be darker there. And I can go in here, all right, grab a little fresh, clear red. And I think all that's going to get, yeah, I'll hit this here too real quick. The whole idea is keep moving. People notice that I don't just paint the face and nothing else. There's a good reason for that, because if you just paint the face and nothing else, you lose all sense of context. So see, I'm already starting to go back out here onto some of these outer edges, finding some lights here. Let's keep going. And I might even, I'm going to go up in here on the banner a bit just to, there, like that. Don't worry about the line. We'll be painting that. I wish that these kind of freehand type things weren't always sculpted and cast into the miniatures, but I know why it's done. It makes it a lot easier for other people that don't want to deal with freehand. I'm going to grab some more of that clear red, throw in a little bit of the sepia liner. See how it's already starting to get a little bit of a blend to it. This was oils. I pretty much just could have thrown in a couple of colors there and blended them together. That is what I love about it. And already I'm thinking about, I'm doing some Skyer type stuff on the armor. I have to start reflecting things here. Reflecting maybe some of the red. And I'm going to throw in just a touch of that clear yellow. Hey Gary, how's it going? Yeah, I have to paint all this stuff for Adepticon anyway, and unless someone creates, and I'd love about a 65-hour day, unless someone does that, there would not be enough time for me to do a standard filming job on this. As it was, I already edited, rendered 2 videos already, so all the army painters on the Patreon page, you just got maybe a few hours ago, you just got a message with a link to the conclusion of Series 7. That was the Morgul Knights. That was a series done all in oils. There's an episode that's going to go up probably sometime tomorrow night. I still have to upload it yet. But I'm painting a Mirce Miniatures Manticore. Yeah, it was one of the first monster creature videos that I've done in a little while. But the live sessions here, basically what you're seeing is just me working. This is what I'd be doing anyway. I have to get these things done. I don't have the time to make it into a formal video, so I figured why not make this possible for you guys to check out. And also there's some company now. Instead of me just talking to myself, I can talk to other folks. Here. You notice how things are starting to get a little lighter? We're keeping the line moving here. They're just adding the clear red. What I like about the clear colors is that they're very intense colors, but they're not clear. I guess that's the other thing too. Some of the names that are given to products are about the worst imaginable names because it creates sort of a false impression of what they are. And the clear paints and the liner paints are definitely, they fall in that category a lot. Because people think they're clear, that they can only use them for glazing or whatever. Nope. This clear red, you mix it with any kind of a, say, somewhat opaque paint, you've got yourself a really intense color. See how intense that is already? Right there. See how we're walking this up? This is as close to, I guess, oil painting as you can get, but with acrylics. See, we're just walking this up. Now at a certain point, I'll probably just stop working with my reds here and then move on to some of the other areas, although because of that preliminary glaze that was done, we have a decent start on some of those areas. Let's keep going here. You can see every so often, throw a little bit of the clear yellow in there. And I remember back when we did the painting pyramid, one of the things that people just requested over and over was a video on reds. Now I've got a bunch of, but between the painting pyramid, 5 color theory episodes there, and now I've done 4 or 5 more for the patrons of the Patreon page. Those, they were begging me to do how do you get red lighter without it becoming chalkier. Now, there's 2 ways. First, you're going to want to use something like yellow to lighten it, but also using blues and greens to darken it. Now, wait a second, we want to make it lighter. Well, unless you have dark, you don't have light. So by virtue of making it darker and cooler, all of a sudden you get more results as far as lightening up your reds, but not that chalky pink nasty stuff going on. So you can see how we've worked this up fairly quickly. Now, the one nifty thing about freehand is that I don't have to really go crazy on blends. Never used Reaper paint for years. Yeah, we had, oh geez, I don't know how many years ago it was at Adepticon. We won a bunch of clear paint, a bunch of Reaper paints as prize support, and among them was clear red. And I thought, I don't know what this is. There was one point where I thought it was like the Tamiya clear red, which is what people use for blood effects and that sort of thing. And that was the first time I actually used it, was for blood effects. Actually, I have a video just on blood effects. But in experimenting with it, that's when I realized, wait a second, this is way more. This is not just a clear red paint. It's a very intense color. They're essentially pure pigment. The blue, purple, green, I call them process colors because they used to be involved with the printing industry. They are just as pure a color as you're going to get. So that intensity, wow, you can do so much with it. And see how the brush sort of fans out a bit? That's what lets me here. See, just a couple of brush strokes here, like this, right over the top. And not on every single one of these. Not every single one. All right. I'll just drop a few more here. Go in with some more of the clear yellow. And just get ourselves one more setup here. Go over the top on this banner. So how long have we been at this? I don't know, 15 minutes of painting or so. We're already starting to get some pretty nifty lights and darks. Again, touch more of the clear yellow. And that was a clear paint. If any of this was a clear paint, how would I be able to cover? You saw how dark some of that initial stuff was. It would not cover that. What this does is it covers most of it, which means I can utilize that in this partially transparent way. It's not transparent as in, say, a watercolor wash. It's transparent in the way that something like, say, a phthalo or alizarin crimson or phthalo blue or phthalo green, super intense colors, but yet they're really transparent, as in really transparent. I'm actually liking the idea of maybe making this horse white. Let's do that. What the heck? Wasn't my original thought, but I like to call audibles, and Bethany just took the words out of my mouth, because I don't know how many times I've begged them to change the name to something like that. Pure Red, I think. That was the other one we said. What if you just called it Pure Red? Because it really is pure red. That is pure yellow right there that I just stuck in there. And you can see, if this was a clear paint, how in the world would it make that lighter? It wouldn't. It would, for all intents and purposes, just kind of bounce off there. And you can see we're already starting to get some interesting little lights and darks on our banner. I'm even going to start integrating this lion form here to some degree. because we're going to make it gold. We've got sort of an interesting orange gold working right here. So we'll bring that out. And we're going to do the same thing here. So let's grab some of that sepia liner. Going to mix stuff that we've already got. And so I'm just going to get away from the red now, and we're going to move to other areas. Like so. And let's see what other things we can hit with some golds here while we're at it. Alright, we're going to get some gold down in here. That's good. And before we get too far removed from things, let's start to get something on the armor, because this is something else I'm going to talk about, and that's context. You really need to have context. So if I just have no armor color here, and we keep merrily painting away all this other stuff. Oh, hey there, Avyad. How's it going? Good morning. Reaper were pure pigment before pure pigment was a thing in the mid. Yeah, they were pure pigment before pure pigment was cool. There's a song in there, but I'm not singing that because you don't want to hear that, and it'll mute the stream anyways. Not because I'm violating a copyright, just because I'm violating sound waves. So let's not have that. I'm just going to drop some of this bluish gray onto the armor here. Not quite sure if you can even see that, but it's there. You notice I haven't even bothered to cover up some of the reflections and other things. So he does not have a lance, so we don't have to worry about that. All right. We'll do maybe some of the same things that we did on the other sections here. Let's start to think about what the armor's gonna be like. We have to start to find some lights and darks there. We have to start thinking of a horizon line here, a sky color. So this will be a little sneaky, non-metallic metal demo in here. I try to do that all the time, sneak these things in when nobody's looking. You think it's safe to come in here, and then it's not, because all of a sudden there's non-metallics going on. You can see we just sort of hurtle along here. These are going to be a little more linear along this section right here. Curved surfaces, obviously, different story. So those are actually just leggings. I think, did I paint them? How did I paint them on the other one? Yep, just painted them as leggings, so we'll go with that. And we'll just get some of the paint out of the brush here, and you can see we've just been, here, let's get a little green in there. Haven't been cleaning the brush a lot. Yeah, I don't understand. It's weird because when was my first ReaperCon? I want to say 5 years ago, I think it was. And they were really all the rate, even before that, when we first started doing the miniature painting back in 2001 and 2. It was all about the Reaper paints. They were a huge deal, and all of a sudden now I don't even know what the connotation is if you use those. Whatever it is, it's silly and negative. I don't know why. There's always fads in painting. You just kind of can't escape those, unfortunately. But that's a fad that just never really made any kind of sense to me. So we're just going to drop a few more. Again, not trying to make any kind of final highlights here. I'm just marking off places in the armor where I maybe want some horizon line action. And with that, now it's time to move along. We'll hit the horse here. So we got some of this, our original gray right here, and we're gonna, oh yeah, we're gonna get out the old Maiden Flesh here. This is my off-white to the red side here. In we go. That makes a nifty warm gray. Let's get after this horse here. I'm not going to worry about the straps here, the harnesses or anything. We'll get those later. It's a whole lot easier to go back over the top and paint those than it would be to try and work around them. Now when I do my army painting demos or my videos, there's a lot of chatting about the currency of time. Every single effect you put on these things costs you some of that currency. The freehand costs you time. Well, conversion costs you time if you're doing stuff like that. Every little bit you add on there. Where I chopped some of these off the bases and raised them up on the base with the bark and the gravel and everything else. That was more time. If I just thrown gravel over the base, or heck, most people with these things, they just paint the base and throw some static grass on there and they're done and that's it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah, that sort of changes things around a little bit there. But because we used a big old brush and worked relatively quickly, we should be able to go back in here now. Throw even a little bit of sepia in there. See how I got this nice filbert brush shape here? Yeah, they come off. Well, speaking of old-fashioned, every one of my vintages, that's an old Reaper paint jar. That's how they used to come before the dropper bottles. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they emphasize a lot of things for beginners these days. Maybe it was the Bones line. Who knows? Maybe it was that. I don't know. People just somehow see it as the beginner's figures, the beginner's paint line. And, well, we used it in the beginning, for sure. But we keep using it now. Why the heck would we not use stuff that we used to use before? It's not like we've grown out of paint. Paint is paint. Just because you use a specific paint or color or something like that pretty much means nothing. Hate to break it to you. Because you could give me a Stradivarius violin and it will be taken away from me within the first 2 seconds of me touching it. Because you will not... Stradivarius, greatest violin ever, in my hands, I think it's more of a weapon of terror or something. You don't want to hear me playing the violin. Doesn't matter how good that violin is. Unless it comes with auto sound correct. That might work. See how that now completely changes what was light here on the reds? Starting to become darker. It's all about context. And we can go a whole lot lighter here. We can go a whole lot lighter. We'll just continue. Guess what? Reaper can be... Yeah, when I think about it, a lot of the folks that we know, well, people going to ReaperCon. There's, what, 40, 50 instructors there now these days. And you're talking about the biggest names, at least here in the U.S., for sure. And what are they using? They're using Reaper paints. Like you said, I didn't notice it until really once I started to do more and more of the painting videos, and people said, "Oh, Reaper paints. Don't you use scale 75?" They fired off all these names. Now, some of them I've never had a chance to try. Oh, what is it? War colors. I know a lot of people like those. I just haven't had a chance to use them. If I had some, I'd try them and use them. See what they're about. Who knows? There might be some kind of really nifty property that they have that would let me do some things that maybe I can't do with any of the other paints I've got. The secret weapon paints, we've been using those for a long time too. But those, when you go with names again, the weathering paints name, well, you can only use those for weathering. And people will say that to us. They'll say, but you can only use those for weathering. You can't use those for regular painting. So, well, we just did. Just painted an entire miniature with them, and it was not a vehicle, and there's no rust on it. None whatsoever. I'll keep working here, except now we're going to change a little bit, getting in a little bit of yellow there. So see what I mean about a chiseled edge. Let's do this. You're taking that big old brush, I'm going to stand on its side, and I was able to get paint down into those crevices. That's what this big honking thing here. That's another thing that sort of terrifies people. But to me, it's really helpful. Now we're going to go the other way. We're going to get a little bit of that bluish white in here. I really love the way the horses are sculpted. I've got a whole unit of Stark Outriders all set to go. Also, some Night's Watch. I think they're the Hunter Trackers. Or Ranger Trackers, that's what they are. Yeah, the Ranger Hunters are... That's the Bow Infantry. That's right. Just going to keep on working here. Keep going to a certain point, and then I don't want to get to the lightest lights. That would just kind of be jumping the gun. We don't want to jump the gun. So Bethany has, like, my scale 75. Yeah, I haven't, well, that's speaking of inks. I just got, Green Stuff World sent me a bunch of stuff. They sent me fluorescent paints, the intensity inks. So there's a bunch of new materials there, aside from, hey, 6 new texture rollers, more of those skull, embedded skull things, the crunch times texture plates, as I like to call them. They sent more of those. So, oh my goodness, we're going to have some parties with those things. And like I said, for anybody that's watching this that's not familiar with what I do, I create tons of tutorial videos. Usually 3, 4 a week at minimum. Some of them are here on the YouTube channel, but the majority of those end up on the Patreon page for good folks like Bethany and Aviad and James and Justin and Gary. They're all loyal Wappelians, as we sometimes refer to them. And they end up, well, let's see. They were all hit with the latest video just a few hours ago. That was all about painting, believe it or not, a unit of cavalry in oils. So this is as far as we'll go with the whites on here before we start to lose some of our browns. Let's make sure I'm going to throw a little touch of gray into that. These boots here, hit some of the reins, the bridle, because the white of the horse was just starting to look, well, how light is it? Putting this dark back on there gets you a sense of, all right, how light have I gone? How light do I need to go? Poof. Again, nothing special here. Let's get the flagpole here. Again, and if I turn it into a direction where you can't see it, I apologize for that. But well, we still have some gray. We're going to hit the green in here. And yeah, see, we've got that filbert thing going on. Wow, 600 pages. You know, people have... It's funny because people would say, gee, you do this for a living. You must have hundreds of jars of paint. So it prompted us to count. And we basically said, okay, these are the active paints that we use on a regular basis. And we counted maybe 25 tops. That was it. There's some specialty stuff. Those kind of special paints, the inks or whatever, some of the blood effects things. Oh, those, yes, those also count too. So we're going to get a little more green here onto our flagstones. But I don't want it to be too light because we want some snow on there. And to make snow look like it's light, you don't want a bunch of light colors around it. So let's grab a little bit of the blue, throw that in there again. We've got the filbert thing working here. And poof. So the Patreon address right there, that's patreon.com with my name. If I pick 3, it'd be Reaper, Acrylic Ink, and Scale 75. Can't get the Creature Caster there. That is weird, what can be gotten in some places and not in others. I will be painting in the Creature Caster booth. Oh, let's see, what's today? Well, it's Thursday, technically. So in about 8 days, I will be painting in the Creature Caster booth at Adepticon. So I can ask them and say, hey, what's the deal? Why can't Tasmania have these? They should be able to have them too. And I'm going to throw just something there on that boot, on that glove. Another glove over here. Another boot over here. Now let's not forget our yellows, our golds. I'm going to just put this out there. Just that we're going to have some fun with the orange rust. It's weird. I paint full-time and own fewer paints than most of my hobbyist friends. Well, we talked about that a lot. And we wondered what the heck is going on. Why do those of us that do it for a living, we tend to have way fewer stuff? Well, we're less attracted to miracle products, I suppose. You know, things that can cure the common cold and end world hunger and all that sort of stuff. We know it's probably not going to do all those nifty things that it says. So we're less likely to fall prey to get this latest thing. I think that has a lot to do with it, I suppose. And then it has a lot to do sometimes with the companies. because what's their advertising approach? Well, buy this, become great. It's just, and I don't mean anything nasty about that, but I've watched it happen to people that I know. I've seen them with just vast collections of stuff that I've never even seen before. And they got it thinking that it was going to immediately make a difference, be a substitute for, well, the sort of suffering that we did, where we had to just basically smash our faces into a wall trying to learn the hard way how to do things. Sometimes there is no substitute for the hard way, unfortunately. That's just kind of how it goes. So we got like a little lion head going on over there. You can see we're the same approach we took everywhere else we're taking here. We're sticking with our larger brush, and you notice we just incorporate a little more of the clear yellow in there. Consistency is a big deal, especially, well, when you're fighting deadlines. When you're fighting those deadlines, you have to know you can rely on something. I'm still waiting for, yeah, basic, oh, what is it? I don't know if it's maybe a cartoon or something like that, where you saw the person gets out the paintbrush and they just do the one stroke and the entire thing just appears in the one brush stroke. Now, going back, of course, I have the advantage of so many years doing 2D art, because to me, these are nothing more than 3D paintings. That's all these are. I don't care if it's a tank. I don't care if it's a 1/48 scale plane, a 1/700 ship, a 175 millimeter figure. I don't care what it is. It's just a 3D painting. So all the same rules apply. Contrast, lights and darks, composition, it all applies. It all matters. So you can see we've been focusing here on the yellows having the golds having a bit more of an orange tint. They're not going to stay that way, because we are going to, in the not too distant future, we're going to start to incorporate some greens into this. You can see I'm still using the same freaking brush that we did all that nasty initial wash stuff with. Still using it. Because what are we, not even an hour in, and we've got ourselves a fair amount done here. Yeah, if you paint all the time, you have a style that, I guess you get a kick out of this. When we first started to really do this as our living, basically, it took over for the 2D art. I think officially 2003 was when, okay, 2D art is gone, miniatures replaces it. I had to paint Dark Age figures, and these are the early Dark Age figures, not the brand new Big Child Creatives ones. And I was told, okay, look, this other person painted these for us. You need to make yours look just like those. Now, it was no big deal to me, because coming from the advertising industry, you're used to that sort of thing. I need to make it look like this, but it's got to cost a third as much. So that was daily life in the advertising industry. So that's what we did. And to this day, people still believe that the other person painted those. They say, oh, yeah, so-and-so painted those. Nope, those were all painted by me. And we'll keep working in some. We have not even added to the palette yet. What is it? The dreaded white. We have not added white at all. So I'm just going to turn down my brightness a bit here. And I'm going to bring back my chat. Heard so many good things about the creature caster paints. Yeah, they are nifty. They are of a very different quality, and I've noticed this. They're sort of the opposite of what the Reaper slash Secret Weapon paints are. They kind of have absolute coverage. Now, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but if you see, I did do a 2D painting using the creature caster paints. I took a piece of canvas board and I painted a friend's cat, and that was a lot of fun. And actually, if I ever go back to 2D painting again, the creature caster paints are going to be a big part of that. That's for sure. So again, I could use a smaller brush too. If you're more comfortable with smaller brushes, well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have not put white out in the palette, and that's not going to be out for a while yet. We don't want to artificially jump to those super bright highlights. Now, in art school, if you did it, you were just kind of publicly humiliated. Yeah, it was a little bit merciless. There was some harsh discipline thrown your way in art school. As we just keep working here. Yeah, the creature caster stuff I'm working on. Unfortunately, I forgot. All of the miniatures, they're in the other room where I can't get to them right now. But I'm working on a third tutorial series. So what the patrons, what they got to see was my Lady of Anguish. So if you go to the Creature Caster site and look up Lady Anguish, actually I think there's pictures of that on their site. Alright, we just do a few more of these here. And now we're going to grab so you can see how much more there is still to go. But you can see there's greens and purples in there. Same thing on the horse's armor there. I went to the American Academy of Art in downtown Chicago, which was, ironically enough, right across the street from the Art Institute of Chicago. We were basically the trade school. We weren't artistes. You were there to learn as much as you could and then head down the street and start working at either an ad agency or some kind of establishment like that. That was your fate. You were not there for gallery openings, wine and cheese, or anything like that. And it was more like a boot camp than an art school. I believe in our first year, out of 20 people, something like 21 people, only 9 people were there at the final bell when the year ended, and that was with 3 replacements. So 6 of the original 21 made it through the year. All the rest basically decided that this was not for them. So you see we're adding a little bit of a lighter tone there. You can see some of that here on the helmet, but again there's that red reflection which we want to get back in here. So let's put a little bit of our clear red back on the palette. Let's see, I know no one I know paints here, just me. Yeah, we don't have a lot of miniature painters in the area around us. There's a few, but in this area, like us, we're in the city, it's very different than being out in the suburbs. So it takes us a while to get to these places, so we just don't see the folks that we know that are miniature painters, unfortunately. There we go. Now, I've just been enjoying these Song of Ice and Fire miniatures because, well, like this, the cloth is cloth, and these are the earliest sculpts. When you get to the newer ones now, basically with each permutation and generation, they get more and more just amazingly realistic, and they are one-piece gaming miniatures. So now here, we've been reflecting the red on the helmet here. We got to switch directions here. We're going to reflect. I got to reflect this also partially onto the helmet here. So it's all about these reflections. And you want it to have some variation to it also. Oh, Naperville. Naperville, Darien. Oh, what's the other? Lombard. Yeah. I think it's because there used to be the GW battle bunker there. That almost kind of became a headquarters for us. I mean, everyone we knew was out there, so we went out there a heck of a lot. We're gonna introduce this now. I'm gonna put some clear purple out there. It's something I really like. Throwing into golds. Here, let's get some more of the clear yellow out there, and touch of the sepia tone. All right. And what we will do, this is I really like this, the clear purple and sepia together. Just creating a little bit of a glaze color here. Now, because we had that shaded base coat face, see, I just dropped that in there. And it starts to, we're starting to get a little bit of shading now in our golds. It's this idea of working back and forth. Sorry, you work a little bit towards the light. Kind of start from the middle out. See, we just tone that down. Let's do the same thing on this side here. We're going to do the same thing in here. And now you can see some of that fur texture show up. You're going to see some of the rivets show up. So instead of just painstakingly hammering away at one layer at a time, this is one way to accelerate past that. Now, purple, blue liner, and we're going to take another route here, and we are going to do a similar thing here. Right here on our cloak. This is something I've been doing with the oil painting stuff, is have a second brush available sometimes. Here I think you can see that, and we're going to take some of that purple, drop that down in there. So it doesn't just make it darker, it also tints it. See, we can go even more towards the blue liner here. So here we got light, dark, light, because this should, in theory, be casting a shadow downwards, you would think. Speaking of shadows, let's get some more over here. I think what some people are waiting for with the creature caster figures is something besides just demons. Now that could be a while before they get into some other genre of figures. That I couldn't tell you. I'm not even sure. They probably don't even know specifically themselves. Now what color? So the inside of the cloak was actually a white. I just noticed that. So let's make a course correction here. I just took some of the green there. And poof. Just change that a little bit. It'll be more difficult on this side. Just going to try and work my brush in there. I'm even letting some of the color mix into that. Just leave that for now. Now the blanket, I see that, okay, that was mostly dark to set up. I'll just do something like this. And we'll just make that darker, because that had the freehand on it. All right. Now I'm gonna got some of this lighter color. Let's get after some of these rocks. Just checking the cool mini site. Yeah, I hate when that happens. There was something I needed to get stuff for one of my classes, and the web store was down. That was painful. That was not a good thing. I'm even going to throw some of this again back onto the horse. You can also get it from Amazon. And actually, I think the price is pretty good on Amazon, too. We're going to throw a little bit of skin tone out here. Now let's yellow that up and gray it up a little bit. And where is my off-white Maiden Flesh? We'll do that. Like so. There's not much of it. Not much, just a hint of it in there, and we'll get back into that in a bit. But I'm going to use some of that here. You can see I'm using a bit of a feathered brush stroke there. This is another thing we're going to hit with one of those glazes again. But I just need to mark that color out. A little bit on the armor there. And with what's left of my sepia here. Oh, the crystal brush. I haven't actually, good grief, when's the last time I did it? I think it was 2014 was the last time I did it. Because at that point it had officially become, you cannot put figures from your armies in there. They had pretty much wiped out the unit categories, and there was just nothing that I was interested in doing. And I think, oh yeah, I got a gold for my one Wild West Exodus monster. And I said, okay, we'll just close out with that. And I hadn't participated since. But I kind of have no choice but to participate now, because with all this Song of Ice and Fire stuff, let's just say that certain parties said, hey, you're doing all of those armies. There's a category now for units, and there's a Song of Ice and Fire category for, here we go, for this. So these lads, they're going to be used in my tournament army on Friday, and hopefully there'll still be time to toss them into the crystal brush. As far as the single figure goes, I have no idea. It might be my Craster figure here. This might be my single figure entry. I don't know. We'll see. It's all coming with me, so yeah, that big old elk. I loved old Stompy. So let's see how much. See how we can still get brighter here. We'll look at his cloaks. So we'll go back to that. We're going to throw some of the clear red back out here. Remember, we talk about context. Now that I've got enough other stuff going on, let's get back into this. And this is where we're starting to get more of a pure, clear red. Look at the difference between that and everything else. And let's hit this, and you'll really see it. So how's that for clear red? Look at the difference that made. And I haven't even added any kind of whatchamacallit, opaque color in there either. That's just the clear red with a little bit of clear yellow. I still have the vast majority of my Wild West Exodus stuff. I think there's just a few character figures that I don't still have. I still have the town of Wappelville. And if you ever go to wappelius.blogspot.com, oh, I think I did at least 200 posts on Wild West Exodus figures. And there was an entire town called Wappelville for reasons. You look at the blog posts, it'll explain all that. It'll explain the whole story behind that. But buddy of mine, Lathan, he does burn-in designs. He does the laser cut terrain. He was making all kinds of nifty Western style terrain. And he made me the train station. We had all kinds of stuff. We had Le Flamant Rose. That was the big tavern there, the saloon. We had the church. Yeah, these clear paints, they are pretty wild. I know I use them. I use the liner paints on my bolt action stuff all the time. I mean, all the time using them on that. But the clear paints were pretty handy on the Fallschirmjägers that I did. And I'll be using them a fair amount too on my D8K, my Bersaglieri. Didn't get a chance to use them too much on my Soviets because I was using those oil paints on those. What was that, Series 2? Yeah, that was Series 2 for my army painting stuff. Painted the Soviets all in oils. Here we are. I doubt if I'll get to paint. There's 2 more of these guys left. And I don't think I'll get to use oils on them. Because, well, they would have to be dry in time, so I think we'll probably just stick with acrylic salmon. So here we're going to add a little more of the clear yellow to that. And the reason this is so much brighter is we didn't knock it down with like the sepia liner and some of the other things that we used to tone it down. So again, that becomes richer, more intense. We'll do some of that here. Over here. Keep going. We've got the plume here that's red. We got our banner here. Right there. So like I said, the blog, oh my goodness, I don't know how many. There's thousands of articles on there. In the neighborhood of, well, let's put it this way, I've been posting to it every day since February of 2012. So, yeah, multiply that, then you know just how many posts there have been there. And today's post was it was a tutorial, step by step, on painting some marble on a piece of terrain that's for Adepticon. So I do those in addition to the videos. Actually, you can even get the videos in hard copy form. And by hard copy, I mean a super high-res file, as in the original render, on USB drives. Because, well, it's it's a digital file anyway, no matter what. You can always just stick it on a USB drive. They take up a fair amount of space, I'll say that. Because they are most definitely high-res files. I think I had my one machine rendering for at least 6, 7, 8 hours today on those couple of videos. I see now we're starting to bring out the lights in these places. Let's hit a little more of the clear yellow in there. Yeah, looks like you can see it. It's the intensity that they have. When I use the magenta, I use the magenta an awful lot on my Wild West Exodus figures. Just because there's a lot of female characters, and the reds and the magentas really were fantastic. You could get more than you weren't just getting pink. If you add a little blue to it, you got this fantastic. Oh god, it wasn't quite purple, it wasn't quite blue, it was somewhere in between the two. This is another thing I like to do is I slap some paint on here, and I use my finger to take some away and blend it. Pretty much in every single one of my classes at a certain point, I have people painting with their fingers. Just another tool. Technically, you're already painting with your fingers. That's what I'm sticking with. Alright, we'll get the top of this. You notice the entire time what have I been working with? On these big old brushes. The whole time. And it just lets me wander around the figure. This is the first time we're going to start to add just ever so slight a touch of the Maiden Flesh. And what that does, it doesn't just lighten it up, but it does make it more opaque. And you don't want too much, obviously, of the clear or the Maiden Flesh in there, because now you could start to run towards the chalky side. That's why we still have to make sure there's enough of that yellow in there to keep that chalkiness away. And you notice this is also starting to wander into the territory of some of the golds that we did initially. And that's somewhat by design. See how that is still semi-translucent? That's why when we drop it here, it's almost acting like a tint, although you see it's not running all over the place like some kind of a watery glaze or whatever. It's still fairly water-free. I guess we'll call it that. Here we go. Now, I do want to make sure you get to see some freehand on this. That's why I'm sort of accelerating the reds here so we can get to some of that. And when I do the freehand designs, if you're going to approach them, you can always draw them on a separate piece of paper. Just to draw them, see, get your muscle memory going, really decide, hey, okay, this is what I want. Then you try it again, but you try it to scale. So like if I was going to do something on this banner or whatever, I would just take a piece of paper that's the same size and then start putting my design on there. And you'll find out a couple of things. First, you'll find out if it's possible. Like something that works at 5 times the size might not work so great at the tiny size. So that's one thing that you can do. also it just ingrains it in your mind. You have to think less about the design as you paint it on there. Now let's check back here. So I think on the cloak is where I'm going to hit just a few lighter things. And what we're going to do is get the clear yellow. I'll get my sepia back out here again, because those will be two colors that are part of my skin tones here. And also my freehand stuff. So there's a few things that in the range of gold here that we want to do. Yeah, we got that. Sword hilt and handle and pommel also needed a touch of gold, even though you can't really see that in there. Now, I'm just comparing here what we've got. So, all right, I'm gonna make this whole section gold. So we just changed that. So all it took was one quick brush stroke. Changed. Now, good. I still have some of this left. And I'm going to get out some of my gray color again. I got to get the inside of the cloak working there. I don't need much, just a bit. Hold this where you can see it. And finalize this a little more. And in here, a similar thing. And on our horse here, now we've got a touch of, it's almost more of a bluish gray. And now we're going to get a little more color variety on our horse's fur. It's doing a couple of things. It's giving us more variety there, but it's starting to get a little more precision here too. We're getting less stark boundaries between areas that are lighter and darker. Do that here too. There we are. And in the boots, those will get hit with a darker glaze in a bit. We've got to keep looking around at a horse, see if there's areas where we want to do some cleanup. Do some here. A little bit under here too. And now we're far enough along here. Let's see what happens when we throw out just a little. We'll throw a touch of weight out here on the palette, because we need to, before we get too far along with other things here, we'll throw this in here. Work that in. We don't want it to get too pinkish. So I'll get a little bit of that blue in there. Touch of the sepia. And let's do some areas of light on our horse. Over here, some parts of the nose, on the knees and elbows. Let's get this tail here. like so. And a few more areas. So it's still not a straight up white yet. That's not, we don't want to get into that. Trying to avoid that as long as possible. Save that for the very, very end. So I'm glad we did the white horse choice here. That makes it pretty fun. Gonna hit a few things here on this shield. So our clear yellow with some of the white. So we can find what some of the lightest color is. Just got a text from DHL. I think you'll have fun with those. Every time I use them, I find some new thing that they can do that I just didn't think they could do before. The fun aspect of the last few things, that the Morgul Knights, the Free Folk Raiders, all the different things I've been working on with the oils, because I've been working on so many things all at once. Some of it's had a chance to dry. And that's where I've had a chance to really do the glazing stuff with the oil brushers. I never thought I was ever going to be able to do that, at least not in the way that I've been enjoying. And like I said, if you ever want to make your own oil brushers, you take the white spirits, you bring in just your regular oil paints there, and you mix them till you're comfortable with the consistency. So now you have even more oil brushers to work with. Now let's throw a few lights there. Again, that's an area you really can't see, so I'm just not going to focus on it. So we're just throwing a few highlights out here before. I think we're just about ready to mess around with that. So let's get this pale verdigris green out here on the palette. Let's mix a touch of that in there. Actually, I don't want it to be quite so light just yet. So I'm going to darken that down a bit. So I've even still got, sorry, some of my original blue liner here, because remember I talked about how green is a really interesting color in golds, and that's what we're going to do right here. We're not trying to do a verdigris effect. We're just, see that little bit of a, right there. That's what we're looking for. Let's do a touch here. Because gold, it's not reflective in the way that, say, your regular polished steel or chrome is, but still has some reflective properties to it. That's why we're getting some green down there. Even in here, in the shadow areas there. But not only there, we're also throwing it on some of our leather there. Even on some of the reins. I think initially I was going to do some sort of fancy stuff on the reins too, and this is one of those things where it was good in thought, and just when you tried to execute the idea, it just didn't quite work. So I'm even throwing some of that in the tail. This won't even register as green when people look at it. Unfortunately, I don't think I have any of the Lannister cards in here with me. Yeah, and it's pretty frenetic getting things ready for Adepticon as we just hit this. But this pattern of freehand right here, it's basically a diamond shape, and then there's these little almost like parentheses in it. So let's start to block in some of that freehand so you get a chance to see maybe how that works. So again, we've got our sepia, we've got our clear yellow here. Let's do this. And like I said, you can use smaller brushes too. There's nothing that says you have to use giant brushes for everything. And let's gear up on the cloak here. So let's do those 2 parallel lines. Let's get the first one in right here. And you notice how the paint's relatively thin. It does a couple of things. First of all, it flows nicely. But it also means that our design is not going to be too stark. Let's do the next line, which is about up here, I'm going to say. Now this has some pretty heavy-duty folds in it. So sometimes you have to distort your design. That's what we're going to do here. It's going to be distorted down and around here. And then I have to pick what's the most recognizable part of that design. It's the diamond shape. So let's do ourselves the diamond shape here. Right here. So there's our diamond in there. And then we've got one basically curved parenthesis and then what's almost a straight line. So let's do our curved parenthesis here. And now an almost vertical line, then another parenthesis, which then leaves us to another diamond shape here. And again, I have to distort these, kind of stretch them out a bit. So here's that parentheses, straight line, another parenthesis, and guess what? It's going to leave us with a nice diamond shape right here. That's what I was hoping for. You can also use dots to indicate where certain things might be. So what we're going to do, just to show you how we'll go with this, we're going to add some more of the clear yellow, and then we pick out certain parts to make brighter. Like this. And I can go back in, put some glazes and such to tone it down if it gets too bright, especially in areas that you would consider a shadow area. This is where the clear paints come in real handy because they are not super opaque. So this is one where you're not really going to be able to see it too well. So we'll just going to paint this in here while I've got the angle. And I almost forgot this here, this crazy little line. There's one of those parentheses. And we've got our white here, and then this can be our final addition here to our little touch of freehand on that. Like so. Up here. So again, where you see the folds in the cloak lighter, well, your freehand better be Your design better be lighter there too. So see how it gets darker here, then lighter there. And we'll do that off on the ends here too. And yeah, I'm not going to screw around too much with things like the banner. I mean, you can see me paint lines anytime. Freehand, that's a whole different story. That you're going to want to see. Let's get ourselves a few brighter hits on our gold in a few places. Now that we've got our smaller brush out. So we did that. We have to do a similar pattern here on the saddle blanket. So let's do that next. So we're going to put out some of the clear yellow again. We'll mix it with the sepia. And we've gotten ourselves a good starting point here. Maybe a touch more of the clear yellow. And what this does, it gives us a little separation, the foot and the cloak from the saddle blanket, and the saddle blanket from the other blanket on the horse there. And let's see how we approach this here. So we approached with the diamond is actually underneath the guy's foot, so we're going to go with the straight line here. Here's our parenthesis, another parenthesis, part of the diamond there, and then we'll just have a more recognizable diamond shape in there. And again, it can be toned down. This is going to be a little bit easier. We can see more of it. So there's our line there. Trying not to do just a basic outline of things. And there was a double line here, if I remember right from the other one. And then we'll check back on our first one here, see what we did on this side. So, yeah. It looks like we did the straight line. Yeah, I looked at, this is the design that was on the border of all the Lannister cards. And I thought, well, that should probably be, that would be a good idea for freehand for all of this stuff. Now, we also have lots of references, medieval designs, coats of arms. We have a lot of that stuff too. You can sometimes overload on references and just you want to try and do everything, and then you just have too much and you end up with a mess. Sometimes less is more. So here's our lighter version that gets lighter away from him out to the edge, because we want that part to basically be in shadow. Missed the beginning of the freehand. What colors? It's just, I started out, well, I'm going to do a bunch more. But the first was just a mix of the clear yellow and the sepia liner. And now I'm just basically using clear yellow at this point. I think there's a touch of, what is that, the Maiden Flesh in it. So yeah, right here, what you're seeing there, that was the initial just sepia liner in clear yellow. And now we're just going to lighten that a touch. Boom. So we got the blanket in. Now we want to start doing some of this other stuff here on the horse blanket. And you see it's basically a succession of semi-connected diamonds. So now we're back to that sepia liner and yellow mix. So again, there's other stuff that I'm going to be working on with this, but I think you can extrapolate how some of that's going to go. You don't need to see me painting the straps of a horse, bridles and saddle straps and everything else. This kind of stuff is probably a bit more helpful for you. So we're just working our way around the outside here. This part of the pattern I actually had to, if it wasn't all of it, it was significant portions of it. I had to just kind of redo. I had a whole different thing in mind, and it just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. The problem actually turned out to be these pleats, or whatever you want to call them here. This element really screwed up what I wanted to do, because it was almost impossible to continue the design that I wanted. Because originally I wanted to actually paint Casterly Rock on these blankets here. But it was one of those things where, yeah, I could put it on there, but I'd have to put it on so small because of the area that's uninterrupted is so small. Once these things went into the unit tray, it wasn't going to show. It was just going to look like just a mass of colors. So I actually just painted over it and went with the design that you see. So that's what I mean about trying out your design first somewhere else and seeing how that goes. So we got those pretty well set. What do we have to do now? There's a diamond shape in there, and then there's what is basically like archways. So let's see if we can get some diamonds in here. And they have to be as small as possible, and they have to be stretched a bit. And we're still working with the sepia liner / clear yellow mix. And these things, each one of these is a different shape as far as these pleats in the horse blanket. So I've had to just kind of deal with that. And I'm not even going to paint that one in because you can't see it. I can't even see it. Part of that currency of time. So again, continuing these diamonds. Still with the sepia liner and clear yellow. And remember, I can always clean these things up. If a diamond shape is too weird or whatever like that, I can always modify that later. So then we've got these archways here. Those were tricky because, again, it's distorted. Oh, no problem. Here, let's get some of these archways. What it helps to do is helps to connect that diamond shape to something. So we'll go this way. Over here. Now, did we continue it all the way up? Nope. I discovered that once I hit the corner of this blanket thing here, I just had to stop. And then you can see I went into a different pattern here. See, there's another sort of a diamond-shaped thing. Now, I'm not sure you'll be able to see this. The flag might be in the way. Let's see, how big was that? Okay, it wasn't That wasn't too big. So I'll get this on the other side here. And then it was more of a sort of a floral design that came out of it. A few of these, this is sort of a medieval type thing. So we had almost like a little floral pattern that came out of that. And then there was a thing that came down here, past here, and then connected that way. And another part of the design went that way. And then we had a second layer here above this. And from here, then we can do just like we did with this freehand and this freehand, where we add the lighter colors to it. I think we're just about ready actually to do that. Just going to go over here and hit some of this while I've got the right color to do that. Just a few little, yeah, like that. And now to the clear yellow. And to lighten up a few of these. Not too much the area and shadow there. So let's hit some of these parts of the design here. And this is where I can, again, with each stroke, start to refine it a touch. And this is where I can make it actually have a different kind of shape or a different type of shading. Instead of just lightening certain edges, I actually start to think, okay, if I just highlight these edges, now it looks like it's actually an archway. I also have, see those three, basically it looks like three progressively bigger and smaller dots. So let's do that. Put one in the center here. And we'll do this on each one of these pleats. Yeah, I think when I first tried doing this, I tried up in this area here to put the Casterly Rock. I looked at pictures, artist renditions of it and everything else, and it just didn't work out. I said, okay, we're just not going to put that on here. We want to, but it's just not going to work. And that happens sometimes. It's okay. So now we get a few more of these dots here. It's connect the dots with dots. So we still need our bigger dot here. I think at one point those were going to almost be like red gemstone painted things in there. I might still do something like that. Here's get back to my lighter color again. And these are somewhat floral design there. And now we're into the thing that you guys probably can't see. So we won't get too engaged in doing that. I think the other thing too is you pick a design that's easy enough to go all the way around this thing. And then do it 4 times. Because, well, there's 4 of these guys and they all have the same blanket thing going on. And actually I'm thinking, yeah, let's just go this way with it. So we'll do this. Working that side a little bit lighter. Like you do. And now some of these also get lighter towards the ends because these are flipped out like that, so these are not going to get the same level of, maybe not even at all, highlighting as I'm doing here. So I'll just sort of stop there. Now let's do some of these. We got our little diamond shapes in here. We'll keep going. Again, more diamond shape. Same thing here. And if it does, if you look at it and go, you know what, it's too stark. It stands out too much. You can just drop a glaze over the top of it. So I think we're going to do this a little bit lighter here. So it stands out a touch. Do our diamond shape here again. Believe it or not, I actually shifted that over. Probably 1/2 of a millimeter, whatever that is. And same here. And also up here. We'll get some parts of this a little bit light because they're on the horse's neck here, so the light's going to hit those a little more readily. Poof, there you go. And now, so these are some of the final lights that we're going to put on this part of the pattern here. And then we'll bring up our other one and see how they compare it. Now it's pretty tough here because I'm actually literally holding this on the side. I'm holding it at an angle to myself so that it points towards the camera. So this was ideal for me. It would actually be over here. And that's not so good for you guys. So if you're wondering why there's certain things I just don't even try to do, it's because we're holding this at a really weird angle. Well, you know, this is something, trying to work this stall out, it took me weeks and weeks and weeks to try and work this out. Alright, so that gives you a pretty good idea, at least a quick general idea of your freehand there, right? Let's try and do some stuff with our metals here. Now let's see if I can find myself some kind of a blue. So we've got this verdigris blue. Alright, we'll use that. Let's get our mint green back out here. And some of that maggot white. Drop that right there. And let's play with some of our metals here. So it's sort of a semi-glaze. It's a sky blue color because what are we trying to reflect? We're trying to reflect the sky. It's not going to be a big difference as far as the lightness or darkness of it. It's more, I'm trying to shift the actual color itself. Get more towards the sky color. Now here, I'll put the sky color there, but then I actually have to throw red on it because look at their banners sitting right on top of it. So we're going to have to, once again, make another change. And don't even know if you can see what we're doing there, but there. Okay, so now we have a little bit more of a sky color. Now let's try and wander this into a horizon line. And the horizon line thing, oof, that can be a bugaboo for some folks. Now what you want to do is you have to remember that the horizon line, it's going to be jagged. It's not going to be a straight line because what's in the horizon? I mean, trees, buildings, whatever. So we've blended that down now. I'm going to see if I can't also make this closer. Yay. And we'll do some focus magic for you. Bring back our chat thing. And now when I did those Lannister halberdiers, not only was I trying to reflect trees, I was trying to reflect basically the guy in the next rank and the rank standing next to him too. So that got pretty complex pretty fast, to say the least. So we need a little bit of a line there. We're gonna have some plates here we have to separate. Once again here with those horizontal or the more of a linear type of a highlight there. Can even do a little spectral highlight right there. And when I zoom in, the one disadvantage of zooming in like that is all of a sudden it's hard to keep it on camera. As in really hard. And I'm also, just like we reflect stuff onto this, like we reflected that gold onto it, we're actually going to reflect some of this more silver type armor onto the gold. Again, look into here. Just going to hit a few lights there. Another one here. I don't think I'm going to mess with the bridle there. Now, I don't even know if I have some colors to do it. I'm just going to take some of the clear red. Do I have any of that? Yeah, I still have blue liner left. That is still out there from when we started. I know people ask me about wet palettes and such. Well, that's one reason I don't use a wet palette. I just don't really need it. I'm going to darken this down a touch too. Again, you can't see any of that, so we're not even going to mess with that. Won't even screw around with that at all. We've got some rivets here that need some attention. And since I still have some of that blue liner left, I'm also going to do some glazes in here to darken some things down because it's in shadow. Let's grab a touch of our white here, just to have it out here. Let's see if we can't, on this, just capture a little bit of an edge line there. Again, we're going to hit that one little spectral highlight up there. Might even, in a few areas here, we'll drop a few lighter highlights in a couple places. See there, I get a little separation on our little round designs, which is Something that I did here. On our other Knight of Casterly Rock. So I'm going to back out of this. Just get one level there. It's a little bit easier for me to deal with. Settle on my focus. And we're going to try and do the eye here. Get a few lights on that. And let's see, I still got my, still got some blue liner here. It's time to solidify a few things on our helmet. And now we darken that horizon line, but it's not completely solid. That was a mistake I used to make back in the day, was that my horizon line would be super even and really solid. And that's not quite how it would be, especially if you're reflecting things like trees or the horses next to them or whatever. Now remember, we wanted to reflect some red in that area there, so that's why I got my clear red back out there. And we're going to try and reflect this banner onto his helmet. See how that's transparent? And it's broken up. It's broken up, it's transparent. Because this is sitting right on top of his helmet here. Why would that not translate into some kind of a reflection? Same thing here. Now let's gray this down. I'm going to throw some of my sepia liner out here. Make sure I have enough red because I need to do some other stuff. So this will give me a different kind of a red here. As I get in here, again, working on that reflected area on the helmet there. Same thing here. And even working on my reds there. Let's get some separation here. And these are the little areas of cleanup and other things that you start to do. Because we spent that time early on trying to secure the basics of the lights and the shadows. This is where we get to do the fun decorative stuff. Again, working on our just a few areas here that should be darker or have more of a separation. Do that here. And since I was able to get that freehand in there for you. Yeah, here we got to do a horizon line. We don't want to forget that here too. We got to do the same kind of thing that we did on the helmet. It was the shape of the helmets on the halberdier guys was really ideal for doing that. So that's another thing that can sometimes dictate what you're going to want to do or be able to do. You know, just the sculpt itself might say, you know what, you just can't do that. It was the same thing with the blankets on these guys. that just said, nope, you had that vision, that thing you wanted to do, but you are just not going to be able to do that. It's not going to work out on here. Then okay, that's fine. So now this is where we can do clean up on a bunch of little areas. There you say, oh, okay. Just in the quest to do something else, I must have painted over whatever. This is where I can take some of the red here and do a bit of cleanup on freehand. Like that. Go in here. Get some separation on things. Yeah, this just needs to be darker red, even though it's next to white. There wasn't enough differential between the two, so we make that little bit of a change. Got some of my darker blue here again. That edge needed to be hit. And we've got our sepia tone. We still got some of the blue. And actually I'm going to throw some of the brown liner back out here. So again, that's the Reaper brown liner. For folks that didn't see that in the beginning, we'll throw that back over here. Now, if you're looking to see the snow effects and those other things, let's see, I've got several of the Patreon videos have that in there. There's 2 Army Painter series that have snow techniques in there. And the one I did on the Soviets has, I think, something like 4 or 5 different combinations, because I was just trying to find what's the one that I like the best for myself. And the Night's Watch, obviously, tons of snow there. So we're just going to shade that darker. So this is where I start to go in with some secondary glazes, like here on the boots. Just make that darker, take some away. Gonna do the same thing here. And now it takes away a little less from all of the freehand that we just did. It also should be, it's facing down towards the ground, so it should be kind of in shadow, and we're doing the same thing here. We're just knocking some of that down. See, we can knock down some of that freehand in there. So these are just ways of modifying stuff on the fly that aren't too painful. I know people, they like to do that whole thing with the layers, where it's just, I paint this layer and I layer it up and layer it up and layer it up. That's just, we did that early on because we thought that's what you were supposed to do. And then we said, no, we used to do 2D art. We can incorporate some of those concepts into this. So now I just want to get a few of these darker lines into here, because I just need to see more separation there. The hooves, you can make them lighter, darker, do whatever. I'm gonna get some darks in here on the horses. Face shield, face guard. Not too much there. Again, you can't see that right there, that pauldron thing, so we'll leave that for off-camera stuff. But hopefully, good, I still have some of this left. Alright, so this is where we're, say, reflecting some of the red, but now we have to reflect maybe something more like the ground. Get the brown liner in here. And let's get some of the sepia too. Where are we at? There we are. Like that. Now, we want to get some green in here. So let's get that pale verdigris back out there. Gonna mix it with the... Oh, look at that. Huge tragedy, right? Oh my gosh, look at that big old thing of blue right there. Here's how you get rid of that. Just gonna hit it with water, and it all goes away. That's that. All done. Let's get back to my green that I was going to do before we had major catastrophes. There's a nice dark green. And instead of it being all brown, see, we tint that give it a little different look. Same thing here. That was just looking too similar to the light color that we had. So let's lighten that up a bit. Where's my green that I'm working with here? So we're just working on this right here. Even some of the reins here. Green is a contrast to red, but you see how the green is very subtle. It's so muted, it's not even registering as green. We'll do that here, because that just got too light, too fast. Once again here on this part of his gear. Do that on this boot here. Back to the reins again. So see how we have some separation there. It's not just lighter. It's also a different tone, different color. Let's see if we can't lighten this up a touch here. Let's go with some of the Maiden Flesh. Let's get that back out here. We haven't used that in a little while. Mix that with our crazy green color here. Get ourselves a few lights on the boot. Back into here. Few more lights once again here on his bridle. Go over to the other side. And we'll do put a little more here on that pole. And now there's a little bit of folds there on the leather, so let's get that going. We'll do this on the interior of his cloak where we want it to be more towards the white. Some more Maiden Flesh into that. Just try and see a few indications of folds One more. So we've got a little bit of green in there. We got some green. We've got some tan, a little touch of almost an orange type color. Here, let's get a little bit of that in here too. On this side, just a hint of it. And that, we're going to have to lighten that too. I can see back to our reflection there. And I'm going to throw clear yellow out here into the sepia again. We're going to try a couple of things. Let's see if we can't do something with the banner here. Oops, covered up my... So I'm doing more than just... So I want to go after that little bit of an outline there too. Now, the great thing about this banner is it won't snap off. Now, of course, it is a little bit flexible. That's going to make it kind of challenging to get in there and paint that. All right, we're just about there. Now let's see if I can incorporate some kind of other design in here besides just this line. And I'm gonna maybe throw a touch of that diamond shape in there. And I'm just basically hashing out a few lines in here to see what happens. Again, the banner is also somewhat distorted because of, well, yeah, so this needs to be more like so. And then we'll do a few little curls off of that. It's really subtle right now. You can barely see them. Here, let's do another one off in this direction too. Comes down, around, like that. So yeah, it's just almost like a little bit of a comma type design. It's basically emerging off of that. So let's start to get some lighter colors on that now. All right. Like that, not too light because this is basically in shadow at this point. Here's our initial diamond shape. And we'll have these, say like so. So we just kind of felt our way around doing that design. And you have to save for, so we've spent the grand total so far on this, essentially 2 hours, because you have to factor in the time I spent trying to get that stupid chat thing working, which it still has not. I've done everything I've seen in the videos, and yet it does not work whatsoever. Nothing that I've tried has worked, so I apologize for that. It just makes it really difficult for me to actually see. because I have to have a whole nother window open. Basically, the window is open where my camera controls should be, and that's not helpful at all. We're back to some brown liner here. Again, just to get the reins and bridle back in the Jeep. So we can clean this out, and we'll add some lighter tones to our banner design here. Just another extra light. We really need to brighten that here too, because it's on the upper part of the fold. The flag itself is catching light, so that means this part of the design has to also. I have, a few different freehand tutorials. There's some Dark Sword episodes that have freehand. Actually, the Dark Sword tutorials have object source lighting, freehand, all kinds of stuff. You can, like I said, you can see all of those with the Army Painter Pledge. But there's also just a Dark Sword Miniatures Pledge. And when you see the name on the box of Song of Ice and Fire, you also see Dark Sword's name there too. That's how I found out about this game. I didn't even know about the Kickstarter or anything like that. It was the Jim, the master of Dark Sword. He said, "Hey, have you heard about Song of Ice and Fire?" Then I went, "Song of what?" And long story. But that's how I found out about the game, and that's how I started painting the miniatures. So there's another smaller, even smaller little design element there. So that gives us now, here, let's zoom out one more. Like that. That's starting to give us a nice little overall thing with plenty of different freehand designs. And while I still have some of these out on the palette, I'm just going to do some of the freehand over here again. It's sort of a review. And what are we doing? We're just going to start out just marking that in place. Not doing the lightest layer yet. And I'm sure if these were done again, this stuff would actually have even more detail, more flow to it. As I mentioned, each version, each new unit that comes out has more and more nifty realism to it. So this is the sepia liner mostly, with a little bit of the clear yellow in it. Here's our almost done getting this stuff here. Now I think I even tried putting a rampant lion here on this part, and it was too much. Just didn't translate well whatsoever. So what I could try and do is put something like those in there. Let's give that a shot. I'm going to get the clear yellow back out here again. We'll do this. Now you also have to thing about giving the eye a place to rest. We have to think that way too, but let's experiment here. Because we've got all of this. Let's do another diamond design here, maybe. So there's a diamond. Extend it out. You can see we're just repeating that same design element over and over again. And let's see if we can't. Here, we'll create this design again. Let's get a little more yellow in that. All right, one more. And this is fun because now I can have some of the parts of the design just sort of disappear underneath things like the blanket and such. So that's kind of nice. Let's brighten that up a touch here. And we're going to hit the top part of that one corner. And then we'll do this corner. So see, now it has a little bit of, it's almost like it's in 3 dimensions on its own. And then now this part of that curve. So it's repeating that design down here. So we're just going from repeating designs from one place to the next. And I can even maybe give this, instead of it just being a line, I'm even changing some of the thicknesses on these lines. Just giving it a little change in the thickness. And if I don't like that, I just wipe it away. So a lot of flourishes here. So that sort of works in with that. You can see how plain that looks over here versus what we've got on this side. So I think it was definitely worthwhile to do that. Now you know I didn't really fret too much about having the red blend perfectly, because, well, there was going to be some extra stuff on there. Okay. And just a few more light touches there. So again, we'll do a few more of these on the flag now that I see what I've got. And this is actually closer to where the light is, so it makes sense that this should catch more light. Especially places there, there. Yeah, that gives it just a touch more oomph. I added a couple of more there. And now I'm going to go back to a somewhat darker version. See if I can do this without bending the whole flag. That's better. This makes a little more sense to be lighter. Now let's turn this over, and you can see that's nifty, that's nice, but that's got more juice to it, and we like that. So I've still got my clear red here. Let's find a few highlights in our cloaks and such, because we've done everything else. And we've given those some of their final highlights. We need to do that here too. And let's get back to this. Just a few here too. And we're just trying to, again, reflect some of the red onto our armor plates. I'm not going to screw around with that. Not going to mess around with the helmet there. I'm going to go back to this. And yeah, I look to see where I need some separation in areas. And I will still, yeah, I'm not going to try and do all the snow stuff there because, well, at this point I'm a little too fatigued to be screwing around with crushed glass and everything else. So that would be, yeah, I'm going to stick with the painting side of things here. Because like I said, I have plenty of, on the Patreon page and such, there's lots of snow, how to do snow there. So again, I'm trying to work that horizon line here. See how it's interrupted and broken. I'm going to go back in here. Trying to make that transition from the sky color to a horizon line. And now, crazily enough, I'm going to try and work a little more of that blue into the horse. Because as people have heard me say over and over again, if you put a color somewhere, it's got to go everywhere. So we're just giving that a hint of that blue right there. So not just lightening things up, but also incorporating those bits of color everywhere where we need them to go. So we've got his, need the some highlights right in there. And some of the, we're going to work on some of the gold up here on his shoulder. So I think all of these little doodads and design elements that we put on here, that sort of speaks to the whole Lannister poops gold. Now hopefully when I use these, not this Friday, but next Friday, they don't just die. Because that would make me sad if they didn't at least wipe out a few units on the charge, because that's what they're all about, is the charge. This army's supposed to be the flayed men, these guys, the halberders. It's not a lot of combat units, we'll put it that way. There are not many combat units whatsoever in the army. That could make things tricky. You'll find out how it goes if I'm not just face down afterwards. So let's see, do we have I'll throw some. Nope, I got it here. Never mind, we'll just use this. Just trying to... Now again, you can't really see much of anything that's going on in here. Just trying to get some things in the face here, some eyes. A few side highlights on the helmet. Also need to do a few things on this side here to get this all to be incorporated. Also don't want to lose that red shift to the banner, that reflection on it. And just trying to see there, I wasn't too concerned there. I want it to be lighter and cooler to get separation from that. See if I can't. Oh, that's good. Need a little bit of a line there. And up on the, yeah, this needs a, that certainly needs something in the way of an additional little bit of a light there. So hopefully all of this gives you some ideas after seeing the flayed men oils. So we're doing cavalry and acrylics. Here, let's get a few more lights here. All right. That works. And a few touches of gold here. Like I said, we'll do that off camera because you saw how to do this. You saw that. We can repeat that on the other side. So I just want to say thanks to Bethany, Aviad, to James, everybody that hung through and watched this. And already forgetting names because it's so freaking late. So here I'm going to show you what we started with. This is where we were just a few hours ago. That's what we had. And now we've got something more like this. Complete with lots of freehand. So thanks again for watching. If you want to share, do the like thing, all that kind of stuff. YouTube really likes it when you do that. And it helps me out too. So again, I appreciate any likes or anything like that. It shows up. You can tell. It'll let you know when somebody likes it or whatever. Yeah, well, I'm actually gonna probably still be working for another hour or two. I have to actually assemble some more miniatures. Thanks a lot, Bethany. I appreciate it. I appreciate you joining in. It's actually way more fun having the company and such. That means definitely means a lot. I'm just gonna get a little bit of a reflection under there. We gotta do the same thing here. It's just not dimensional enough. Right in there. That's what I need. Maybe even just a few like that. So yeah, look at how comparatively plain that is until we get over here. And now Shazam, we have all of this nifty stuff working here. So I'm probably going to be doing one of these relatively soon again because There's tons more stuff to paint. So actually I've got another video, I think probably tomorrow, going up on the Patreon page. That's going to be the Mearse monster. So for all you loyal patrons there, stay tuned for that. That's coming up. I just got to upload it. And for all you out there in YouTube land, just watch for this channel. And you'll see tons more fun stuff. So thanks again, and I'll probably catch you in a day or two.